You mentioned the power of our thought and how positive thinking can help with brain health. What is a step we can do if we tend to be glass half empty? What can we do to maybe get on a positive train of thought?
Yeah, good question. I think there's some recommendations now that maybe we don't overly focus on the news, because the news, unfortunately, seldom do they have a headline about how wonderful someone's day was that day.
Right.
They tend to focus on the bad events, which are certainly important, but if you do spend a lot of time on that, I know that some of my friends have really backed off from spending too much time on that. And I think reaching out to be sure you are connected, because when I think the glass is half empty, it's kind of easy to say, I don't feel like going out today. And to look around and see if you can take some little steps to be sure you're well connected, whether it's finding some type of an engagement program at the local community center, or reaching out to someone that you know and say, hey, would you just like to go for a walk today? Not to spend time self-isolating if possible.
Right. Okay, that's a good tip. Also, you mentioned in the presentation the importance of sleep and how sleep can support better brain health. And so you also gave some tips of what we can do to support sleep. Any study or research on taking something that would be a non-pharmaceutical, so something like melatonin, to help to support us to sleep that optimal 7 or 8 hours?
Yeah. Melatonin, which is a natural substance that our body produces that helps us sleep better, is now available as a supplement, and some people take it. And I think the jury is out, because I do try and read about them quite a bit, and some people will say it's helped me a lot. Other people will say I don't see any difference. I think we know that light and dark also affects our ability to sleep. So you can go in and if you Google lights for assisting better sleep, you will get some information and studies that show that if you begin to dim the lights as the day goes on, to kind of naturally mimic, if we are staying inside and keeping our lights on at this kind of the same level until we click the switch at 10 p.m. and go to bed, it does not cue your brain to begin to release its natural melatonin on the cycle that it needs. So we know that we are geared just physiologically to respond to the light-dark cycle. So that's something else to think about, is what kind of light you have. And also we know that getting at least an hour a day of natural light, natural sunlight, will help us maintain that good sleep and wake cycle. So if you aren't outside, at least for an hour every day, is there a way you could arrange that? Is there something you could do outside, or could you sit next to a window while you're reading, or try to get good natural light at least an hour a day?
Yeah, those are great tips, because they're things that you can change about your environment, right? Versus having to take something like a melatonin. That's a great tip.
And a lot of those studies were done in nursing homes where people did not get outside very well, and the lights were kind of at the same level all day until night, kind of thing. So now there's studies, they show that doing different kinds of light around 5 or 6 o'clock, so people begin to prepare for going to sleep.
Yeah, I know when I think of our community settings and our memory care neighborhoods, we do kind of after dinner, we start to dim lights. We start to put some practices in place to make it more relaxing, so that our residents will get a good night's rest. I know you answered the question about crossword puzzles, and what contribution crossword puzzles maybe make to brain health. And you said that really, it'll make you better at crosswords. It's healthy, but maybe doing something a little more complex or novel is a better choice. What are your thoughts on technology? And is GPS, I don't know, is that hindering some of our problem solving?
I totally agree with that one, because I used to be a public health nurse, and those of you that are old enough to know what a Thompson map is, I had it in my car, a big thick thing of maps, and I would go visit different people in their homes during the day. And I was great at map reading. Now I don't have a clue. I don't think I could read a map at all. So it is a skill. And GPS, I'm grateful for it. But yes, I've lost my skill of
Yeah.
map.
Might not be that brain healthy to use GPS all of the time, though, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Or like it said, try navigating a different way to a place you're used to going. So I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to discover a new way to arrive there.
Okay. All right. And then we at Vitality, we certainly, when we're planning programs, we think about the social aspect of our programs and really helping to establish meaningful relationships. And you talked about it today. So how does that social network really help our brain health?
Oh, we are just wired to be social. We're social beings. From infants who begin to seek out their mothers and then seek out others, that doesn't go away. Now, obviously, some of us have stronger needs than others. We have introverts, extroverts, all of those kinds of things. But we all are wired to be social. And that is one of the advantages of why I recommend people who might be living by themselves or might have a spouse that is perhaps has needs in terms of care or is no longer able to socialize. There's some real advantages to moving into assisted living where you have a network outside your door. You don't have to be out all the time participating in it if you don't want to, but they make it so easy and with such a nice variety of things that's going to help our cognitive abilities to stay active.
Yeah, yeah. I often think that as we're aging, not so much that our interests change, but sometimes our access to those interests change. So having that supportive environment can make a difference. You know, you identified 5 different blue zones. You know, Loma Linda being the one that is in the United States. You mentioned obviously spirituality and the vegetarian diet. Is there anything else that you find unique about that Loma Linda site of being a blue zone?
Well, they, you know, I have some friends that live out there and they are involved in the Seventh-day Adventist church, and it has some great aspects to it, as many religious communities do, in that they really form a community. So they, if they don't see someone for a while, they're going to be checking on them. You can feel connected, you can feel safe. They believe that you should set time apart each week to spend with your family. And I think that's something that sometimes is lost in families these days. Everyone's going different directions.
Yeah.
And so they dedicate a day to spend together as the family. So those are values that they saw across the blue zones, and things that maybe we can look at maybe picking back up in our culture again.
It's interesting when you look at the 5 sites, the 5 blue zone sites, how 4 seem remote, and then you have Loma Linda, which is smack dab in California, not remote at all. Yeah.
Not remote at all, but they have a lifespan of close to seven years above the average U.S. lifespan. So they really stand out there.
Okay. And then I kind of brought up the topic of medications and sleep. Are there any medications or that you would maybe recommend for brain health, or are we just looking at lifestyle?
You know, I think again, the industry that makes dietary supplements has really jumped on the bandwagon, and they're trying to sell a lot of supplements that are going to supposedly keep your brain sharp. I think a lot of the studies that are done with supplements of all different kinds are not as rigorous as something that would be done by the FDA when they begin to approve a medication. Supplements are under a different kind of licensure, and they don't need as rigorous studies as medications do. I'm not saying they're harmful, but I think there's also it's not conclusive yet what benefit some of these supplements might have. They make a lot of claims, but they're not always proven. I say if you feel better with it, or try it. I know I had some aches and pains, and I took turmeric for a while. I didn't feel any different. I stopped it. So
yeah.
I'm not aches. I don't think there's a benefit to it.
Yeah. And then we did have a question come in about just being concerned if their loved one, so somebody wrote in that they have an 84-year-old grandmother who is becoming forgetful, repeats questions, and the curiosity was, what should they do? There is some concern that their loved one, their grandmother, might be developing Alzheimer's or related dementia. Any good next steps in that scenario?
Yeah, good question. And that is typical of how you potentially could think of dementia or Alzheimer's developing. It's gradual. It usually appears over time. It's not a sudden change. I definitely would, try and let her know how much she's loved and that you love her and want to keep her safe. And would she consider going and getting a good diagnostic workup? That would be the first thing that I would recommend. And usually your primary care doctor can begin that process, but for a good diagnostic workup, you probably also need a neurologist involved. And if you're near a university center, of course, you're going to have lots of resources there. But I would say to get a good, because you wouldn't want to miss that your grandmother is being affected by, it could be she has something else that is affecting her. It could be medications are making her confused. It could be that she has a thyroid problem. It could be that she has a nutritional problem. I don't know. So you just want to be sure to rule out anything that could be reversible. And then the other benefit of getting the correct diagnosis and getting an early diagnosis is then it gives the person time to be involved in decisions about their care. So then they can begin to look at resources in the area. They can begin to visit assisted livings, or they can begin to put a plan in place. Okay, if she wants to stay in her own home, how can we help support her to do that? So.
Right. What does that look like? Yeah, being involved in the plan, how beneficial that can be.